But I would first like to welcome Dr. Ali de Boer. She is an assistant professor at the Maastricht University in the Netherlands, and her research interests include the role, use, and effect of scientific evidence in food-related policies and legislation. She aims to contribute to improving our understanding of how consumers can best be informed about foods, especially when it comes to new technological food developments. Welcome, Ali.
Thank you.
Yes, you are allowed to clap for that. Next on stage, I would like to welcome Konstantinos Douros.
Kostas, for simplicity.
For friends,
This is
Kostas.
the official name, the full name. Friends call me Kostas.
We're friends here. So, Kostas, he is a professor in pediatrics and pediatric pulmonology at the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens. Sorry, I have to read that. Even in Greek. And he is focused on pediatric allergy and pulmonology and has taken in the Stance4Health project the challenging role, I would like to say, of recruiting children and coordinating the field research in Athens. And then, last but not least, we also have Kai Hermsen with us. He is the co-founder of the Twins Foundation and coordinator of the DRG for Food Horizon Europe project, and he is a trust and tech advocate. He is creating open source disposable identity to establish online trust, and Kai has already advised and coached various organizations on digital trust and cybersecurity, including leading the Charter of Trust initiative at Siemens, and he's the father of two as well. So. Before we going into the panel discussion itself, I would just like to remind that we also... You have your notes? Yeah. Okay. That we also have the Slido open for the participants, of course, on site as well as online. So please don't hesitate to join us in questioning these four experts here on stage. We will also have some prompted questions later on, but the first round is basically open for everyone. But I think maybe what we can start with now is to have a little questions from ours.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, well, we're going to start this first round of questions. I would like to ask you, Darius, first, thank you for a very nice presentation. And regarding your main question, based on the research presented, is the world ready for the iDiet? How can this app or any other personalized nutrition app gain popularity among consumers?
Yes, these were two questions. Well, as I presented, and I think that is the main takeaway from studying with large consumer samples, the iDiet app right now is not available to the masses, so we can't speak for real-world adoption, but we can talk about the interest in consumers, and the interest is large, and the need for consumers to use those solutions is large. So I think that this app and personalized nutrition meets demand in the population that we have right now. Could you repeat the second question?
Second is how could this type of apps get popularity among consumers?
Yes, so I think my response to that would be if the app would adopt some tagline along the ChatGPT of personal health, then we would probably see skyrocketing adoption rates right now. But yeah.
Do you think that if health professionals would support this type of apps, could lead to consumers to adopt it easily?
Yes, that is actually what we find in our research, that biggest reluctance in the majority of consumers is towards solutions that are solely based on artificial intelligence advice, but also not on advice from a doctor, which usually comes at a cost and availability. So the big advantage of providing personalized nutrition through an app is it is sitting in my pocket and in every consumer's pockets. So it is highly accessible, which is the perfect combination of having an agent such as a doctor who provides the trust into the advice, and then having the accessibility, the interface to that advice readily on a daily basis.
So maybe I'm going to jump to the doctor here
All right.
and ask, well, as a clinician, what is your experience with personalized nutrition in your sector? And based on what we have heard today, can you discuss the potential impact of personalized nutrition on the prevention and management of chronic diseases in children?
All right. I can talk as a pediatrician because there is my experience. In pediatrics, we've never had a personalized kind of nutrition. The only thing I can recall is when, I think 20 years ago, there was a trend. We had some data then. In order to prevent allergic disorders in children, we tried to use partially hydrolyzed milk in infants. So the data we had, they were not very convincing, and we ended up with some kind of recommendations, and the kind of if you think you can choose to give partially hydrolyzed milk and to see if there are any results. That was the only thing. Some clinicians then adopted these recommendations. I wasn't one of them. I was never convinced of that. And after a little time, nobody used that. But the eye diet is something new. The eye diet and this kind of personalized diet targets to the microbiome. Microbiome is a very central system to our body. It modulates the immunological system. It's very central to our defense system and to how we create as humans. So, and this is through some dietetic advices. So, I think that if we can go to an eye diet application through this, we can change a lot of things. This approach, I think it's revolutionary. It can change things because we have two things. The first thing is that we can prevent many diseases. That's for sure. The second thing, which has the same importance, is that I think that we can augment the traditional therapeutical regimes. So, you see, we very often provide drugs for some disorders. There are no perfect drugs. All drugs work up to a level. If we could augment their action through a modulation of the microbiome, and that means without adding another drug, that would be perfect. So I think if this eye diet can improve itself, it will be embraced by all clinicians. And you see, if a clinician gives an advice to a patient, patients usually follow this advice. So I think it's very, very crucial for the eye diet, to convince the clinicians that it has a role in the promotion of health, and then the other things, I think it will be much easier. Okay.
So I guess there's some patients that follow the recommendations, but it's also difficult to know if they're following all the way. I mean, I think, for example, in this case, it's an additional challenge, the fact that you require some, you're providing some data, right? Kai, this question is for you. So for being accurate, personalized nutrition requires a huge amount of personal data, right? Together with the great potential and opportunities that such approach has for our nutrition and health, it also opens some questions and concerns about data, on how is the data collected, handled, and then used. Can you please talk about those aspects and the main open challenges related to security and privacy, please?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. And yes, wherever there's data, there are concerns, there are risks. The more data you use, the more you need to think about the risks. What we do in our project, DRG for Food, and I think also very relevant to the iDiet discussion, and also what I heard today, is to see it in a bit of a bigger context. Or rather than just looking at privacy and security, I think it's the framework of trust that helps, because trust needs to be built, it needs to be earned. And privacy and security for me and for us in the project are means to achieve trustworthiness, to build something that is trustworthy, to build an app that is trustworthy, and needs to be trustworthy in the eyes of the users. Not me as building someone. I mean, I can trust that product. Yeah, that's nice. But it needs to be trustworthy in the eyes of the users. And privacy and security are two of the means to achieve that. They're not the only ones, I think. So there's more to this. I had a very good presentation early in the morning, I think it was the second or third one, where there was also data integrity, but it's also human integrity. So how much data do you actually use? You know, what's the business model behind? And there's more dimensions to trust. There's also who's actually running that app. Right? It's not just the app. I mean, that's the technology. But beyond that, who's running the app? Who has the credibility or the trustworthiness to run an app? Let me give you an example. It makes a difference if Google is running that app, or if it's, I don't know, the European Union or someone in the European Union or so. Right? That makes a difference. And then beyond that, and you mentioned something in that direction, there's also a relational element of trust. Means who else is using it, or who's telling me to use it. Right? So doctors enjoy trust, and that is built over time. I mean, some of your patients you know for a long time. They're coming to the hospital, they see that building. So there's trust anchors, right? You have a nice title, and you dress like a doctor, you know, all these kind of things. I mean, that's in a good way, of course. Huh? So all these kind of things are kind of transporting trust. So we need to think about that bigger picture. And then going back to your question, privacy and security are very important in this day and age. The more things are digital, the more we need to think about privacy and security and data governance and integrity as parts of building that trust. And like I said, they're not the only ones.
Thank you very much. So I think I would like to jump to the legislation part, because as you mentioned, trust is very important, but how do we reflect and how we communicate this to the general public, the consumers? So Ali, I would like to ask you, currently, what are the main gaps in the current legislations that need to be addressed to facilitate the development of personalized nutrition in Europe?
Well, I think we talked about data and the use of data and a lot already, so I won't go into details on the GDPR or anything like that. That's also not my main expertise, so that's a good thing, I think. But what we also see is we talk about personalized nutrition also in the context of the project that you've been working on for the last few years, not just as a nutrition service, but also in its implementation in healthcare. And that's where different regulatory fields actually touch upon each other. Are we talking about a nutritional service? Are we talking about nutritional and more lifestyle related advice? Or are we actually talking about healthcare related services? If you see that, for example, on a product level, if we would talk about personalized nutrition, you cannot promise that a food product is actually treating a disease, because by law it's immediately considered to be a medicinal product by presentation. And we also see those borderline issues, those gray area issues between medicinal products, foods, other lifestyle-related elements, medical devices, such things. We also see that when we talk about personalized nutrition advice or services, like an app, talking about a full dietary perspective. So you see that it's quite scattered. Lots of different elements are regulated already, either on a European level or more on a national level. When it comes to healthcare, it's very often on a national member state level. So you have to be quite, I think, an expert in those different regulatory fields when you want to introduce something. And that makes it very complicated. And I can imagine that's a huge burden to actually introduce something with regards to a business model. That makes it quite complex. And I think if we want to make sure that we can move forward, it needs to be a bit clearer. I think these gray areas need to be unraveled a bit further.
Thank you so much. I would like now to see if there are some questions from the audience. I'm going to give you my microphone.
Thank you. There are two connected and slightly provocative questions. The first is, do we genuinely see that the iDiet is for the masses, everybody, and not just the worried wealthy well? And I did warn you it was slightly provocative. And the other question is if we do genuinely see it as for the masses, how do we cascade that down through society and reach the hard-to-reach groups who at the moment are more worried about where dinner is coming from, not the nutritional balance of that dinner?
Thank you for your questions. Is anybody wants to answer? It was not addressed to anybody, so okay, Kai, go ahead, please.
Well, I think, quite frankly, I think all digital business models or digital approaches raise the question of inclusion. For me, that's given. That's the thing. I mean, I was also missing this a little bit in the studies earlier because I was thinking, what about demographics? I mean, there are certain age ranges or certain people that might not even use digital technologies. They don't have a smartphone. How can they be reached? Well, certainly not through an app, right? So yes, I think that question is there. Beyond people that care just to have something on their table, there is also a certain amount of skepticism towards digital technologies by and large. So I think there's also a macro dimension to trust. We've seen this at play during the COVID pandemic. I mean, there were so good digital solutions to contact tracing and so forth, and the adoption rates in some countries have been disappointing. And why is that? Because the macro level of trust was not really favorable. And then tying this back to Ali, what you just said on regulation, I think we need to think beyond regulation, because the government can also do other things than just regulate, and also going back to what you just said. So maybe the iDiet app at this point in time will not reach everybody because it can't. It can't, because not everybody has a smartphone. Does that mean we should not do it? I don't think so, because we need to pioneer these things and they need to sink in. And I'd rather have some of these positive examples, trying out things, and we saw that it does work for some people. And then we need to think about the dynamics of how change in our society is created and how new technologies or new innovations are being adopted. And you need to start somewhere. And that being said, we just had that, Darius and myself in a break, we had this discussion that it's not just the utility of an app that defines if it will be adopted, and it's also not just the trust dimensions, but there's also in this day and age a trend and a hype mechanism around these things, right? So on TikTok or so, there are trends, or even before that, Ice Bucket Challenge doesn't make sense at all. I mean, it's an old example, I know, but I hope everybody knows it. It doesn't have any form of utility, but there's a hype generated around it, and then people adopt it. So that is, for me, would be one of the questions. How do we make something like personal nutrition an ice bucket challenge, that people really think they need to have this and need to be part of this because there's a fear of missing out. These are some of the dimensions we need to think about beyond the pure technology. And in that sense, no, I think it starts as something for a selected few, and hopefully then triples and over time gets more accepted with the help of, for example, doctors and many, many other more.
May I add? Sorry.
Yes.
It's just a comment about what you said. Is that maybe if you know all the people have access to mobile devices to use this approach of personalized nutrition, maybe if we are able to implement this kind of personalized nutrition to give the option to clinicians to use for their patients, regular patients.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you are healthy, in primary care, and they provide the personalized nutrition counseling to the patients they have, and the analysis of the gut microbiome could be another approach to reach little by little to the consumers. And don't have such differences in inequality that they could have. Maybe.
Absolutely.
I think that from a clinical point of view, the eye diet is for the masses, but this will be in the long run. For the time being, we have to aim special patients group like celiac diseases or the allergic patients, for those who have data. And after time and after the evolution of the eye diet and the data we collect every now and then, and I think that will be a very valuable tool for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree also on that. I think trust will be higher when you can already show some results that the app or the research, I mean, all what we're doing at the project is working, has some impact on people's health. So I guess we're on the way of building this trust toward this type of technologies. We have some questions from our online, from our anonymous friends. Well, one of them is, could accessibility be a challenge, particularly for vulnerable populations? Personalized nutrition apps might not be accessible to all users, particularly those who do not have access to smartphones or the internet. This could lead to unequal access to the benefits of personalized nutrition interventions. Well, I agree. We were just discussing this.
I think we just touched upon it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, confirmation, I think, from our side. What one could think about, and you mentioned it, is ways of adding an analog element to it for the time being. So not just offer something like this in a digital fashion or offer it through others. Same holds for children, for example. They cannot use the app. They shouldn't, probably. It's not built for them, but somebody needs to use it for them. Or also a lot of people who are not in the state to use digital technologies. That being said, we need to be, of course, careful from a research point of view that we're not covering everyone, right? So whatever you learn from that app, you also need to be careful to incorporate that it is a selection of the population, which, why am I saying this? I'm not a researcher myself, but I'm seeing this very often. That I was recently at the presentation and somebody said, well, we have this new algorithm analyzing Twitter for the inflation rate. And I asked the gentleman if he knows the percentage of people that are actually on Twitter, and he didn't. And the second question was, do you know the amount of fake profiles on Twitter? Also that he didn't know. So we need to be careful, Also, it's a two-way street, so to say. It's a fraction of the population that will be on these apps, and not necessarily all of them, as experience shows, are real people. But there are also there's actors interested in messing with the data that is being generated.
Well, I think it's very difficult, Darius, to target all the population. I mean, for any type of product or development, you have a sector that it's not going to be covered. So I guess this is a good start. And then having these questions on how we could target some other populations, target groups, it's a good start to start reflect and maybe an idea for another project.
I wanted to add that we first of all have to define what is a vulnerable person, or what was it? Yes, who are the people who are vulnerable considered in this population, and what are they just have different needs again. And then when we go back to what we studied with consumers, there's not one solution that fits all. And there will be one solution for people who are willing to adopt nutritional advice from artificial intelligence, but there are those who will never be swayed by AI and will go to the doctor, and they will have a doctor. So vulnerable populations already are in care, and maybe this solution is then not for them. But regardless, we can provide a solution to the masses, because in this day and age, we see that the majority of the population do have access to smartphones and applications, mobile applications. And yes.
And I do think, to also reflect shortly upon the food security issue, if you think about for who can follow, who can adhere to the diet, right? Who can actually make a financial commitment to buying the app, reaching out to potentially that extra dietitian or a healthcare professional in an additional part of the app, or who can also stick to the dietary advices based on what is recommended. I think that's, again, something to think about in potentially a new project, because I think especially seeing the different effects of economic changes to the population, that there is a larger group of the population, who has a more difficult time to actually get everything on their plate that they would need in a general way. So even personalizing it might be more complex for them. So considering that financial aspect and trying to make it as accessible as possible is something I think, that should be something for any researcher working on personalized nutrition. That should be in the back of our minds, to think about how can we make it as accessible as possible to any type of vulnerable population, whether it being access to smartphones, access to carers, or financial aids, anything like that. Make it as accessible as possible.
I think, we should jump into the second round of questions. I just want to say that I think the iDiet has also this a feature that you could change the type of products. So depending on, if you can't afford it, for example. So I think that's something very nice that the app has to offer. Maybe let's jump to the next round of questions now.
Yeah, I think otherwise we can probably discuss only on this point alone for the rest of the day. I would like to jump back to Darius now. You, in your introductory presentation, you discussed if the world is ready for the iDiet app. But let's twist this around. Is the iDiet app, or maybe personalized nutrition in general, is this ready for the world at the moment, and what could be next steps and technologies to be implemented in these approaches?
Yes, there are many ways to answer this. So if we think about different type of populations, like vulnerable groups, maybe the elderly, then this personalized nutrition advice should be provided through robots. But luckily those exist nowadays as well. One thing we learned from the studies is that there are some service aspects that are more valued than others, and those would be the obvious ones that any future commercialization of an iDiet app should improve on. And that would be, for instance, allowing access to some human agent who can back up if there are some questions, for instance, about the nutritional advice provided. There's what was highly valued is the aspect of personalization, so allowing that solution to input your own needs and goals, for instance, fitness goals. Those would be all points to further improve such a solution in the market.
Okay, thank you very much, Darius. So what I take from this is basically that there are a lot of different opportunities and possibilities to develop different kinds of technologies, be it like through targeted groups or be it like robots for seniors. So with all these technologies being developed, and I'm looking at Kai now, they need to be developed. There need to be money that needs to be invested in that. And one example is represented by the DRG for Food project that offers small grants to researchers. Could you provide a bit more information on this initiative and highlight how it can ensure that the citizens' privacy is safeguarded in that amount?
Mm-hmm. Well, in the project that we just started, well, actually not just, it was in December, so it's half a year already, time flies. But I think we had a good start off to something very interesting because, as you said, part of the project is to distribute in open calls some funding to develop enablers, to develop tools that can be used for data sharing in the food system. And this in a responsible fashion. So to build trust, and I was talking about trust earlier, we think we need to build in responsibility and digital responsibility around privacy, cybersecurity, data governance into these tools and into the processes that go into developing these tools. And what I like very much about our approach and about the approach that the European Commission also asked for is that it is asking for a number of solutions, not just one. And why do I think that's a good thing? Because there are diverse challenges out there in the food system. I mean, think about it. The food system, there's not one food system, there's so many stakeholders. Virtually all of us are stakeholders in the food system, which makes it so interesting, right? But also so challenging at the same time. That's one of the few systems that no one can say I'm not a part of, because how could you? I mean, we're all eating, we're all some part of this system. Hence, the challenges are very diverse. Hence, we are looking to create a number of tools and approaches for that food system. And to do so as a project, we're doing three things. It doesn't start with the open calls, but it starts with the right framework. So we're developing a framework on how do you actually bring in digital responsibility around privacy, cybersecurity, data governance into our project, but also into the development processes. That's number one. Kind of trust by design, if you will. So thinking privacy by design, cybersecurity by design, one step further. Second, we aim at supplying a toolbox for open call participants. We saw when the iDiet app was introduced, we saw this nice picture. I'm so sorry, Veronica. Yeah, Veronica. You showed that picture of the Lego bricks. Huh? So into an app, there's a lot of pieces that go into. And that's what we would like to already provide open source to some of the open call participants. Some of these Lego bricks, because there are a lot out there, but it's difficult to find them, right? So the idea is maybe we can come up with a toolbox that enables others to take them and with these Lego bricks come up with something really fancy, something really creative that we didn't think about. So the bricks as such, they might not be that interesting on their own, but developers and people out there are very creative. They can come up with something that is very nice if you give them the Lego bricks in the first place. That's the toolbox. And then we give them in the open calls, we give them also some money to do so. Not to play with the money, but to have the money to play with these Lego bricks in the framework that we provide. That's the idea. And we hope that something good comes out of this. Will all of these tools be ready for the market and perform like hell? No, they won't, because that's not how the world works. You need to try out things, and some of them will fail. And that's exactly why we get public money to do that and to incentivize some of these trials and try out some of the things. And now, if I may, I close the circle to the iDiet app and to this project. There's a lot of learning for us in this project, and that's exactly why we're here at the conference. And We aim to take a lot of these learnings and then kind of build them into the process from day one. So learn from this, build it into this, and I don't know, come up with, maybe even collaborate with the iDiadep or whatever. I mean, there's so much opportunity here on the table. So yeah, looking forward to doing that. Thank you.
Great, I'm happy to hear that, and I think the project coordinator is also very happy to hear that.
We'll talk later. That's not a threat.
We'll see. Now, besides the technologies that we've been talking about, we also heard about different aspects. We heard about different research aspects. We heard about the microbiome, very state-of-the-art science that is being researched right now, but also about different supplements, different solutions that can feed into a personalized nutrition. But they, as Gustavo said, they need to enter the market. I would like to ask Ali now, is the regulatory framework somewhat ready for these relatively new approaches? And what are there for obstacles for people that want to bring these personalized nutrition solutions to the market right now?
Well, I think, like I said, it's quite scattered, so you have to be very clear on what kind of product am I delivering, what is the scientific evidence behind the fact that it actually works, and can I promise that to my target group? And I think it's actually the interplay between the science and the legislation that makes it sometimes quite challenging. That, for example, at this moment in time, lots of nutrition and health claims that we see are focused on one ingredient of one food product, targeting the general population. But if we want to move towards more personalized marketing of certain diets or certain food products or certain ingredients, we have to focus on different types of target groups. And me as a customer, I also need to know whether I do actually fall into that target group, right? So that's a mix of advices, services being offered, being available, being readily available, and the products that are marketed or that are showing me that I indeed should focus on those products. So it's really a combination of having the scientific evidence to market these products. And for some things, you can definitely develop these. And I think there's more and more products focusing on targeted approaches and more services targeting certain consumer segments. But really making one personalized diet for me as a customer, that might still be quite challenging to gather all the evidence available, make sure that I can indeed eat products that are maybe containing lots of tannins, which could be safe for me, but not safe for my neighbor. So these elements, these individual differences, these variations, they might actually be, well, underlying some scientific questions related to safety, related to health. And that's quite challenging, of course, in the regulatory framework, because we talk about food safety for the general population. We talk about health effects for the general population very often. So this targeted aspect, I think, needs to be more embedded, but there's a lot of possibilities already to start developing products, to start introducing products, services, and advices, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's good to also incorporate a little bit the questions or the input that we gathered from the various people that watch us right now online, and maybe also from the audience. One comment that kind of stuck out to me was actually apps replacing professionals like dietitians. That person does not think that it will work, but many of the patients don't know dietitians and prefer an app for simplicity of reasons. Looking at Kostas, being the clinician in the room, you worked with the people on site, you worked with the children, of course, and also their parents. How did it work for you in the Stance4Health trials? What is your experience from conducting this research? What was the feedback maybe also from the participants?
Do you want the truth or not?
We're here to learn, so the truth and nothing but the truth. And
Well-
maybe also, what are lessons learned from these feedbacks that you received? So what would you do differently with the knowledge that you have right now?
Okay, the good news is that it wasn't very difficult to persuade them to enter the trial. And that was because there wasn't any intervention with a kind of drug. It was just food, healthy food. We explained them that this is a kind of thing that we will try to improve your health by giving you the right advice, right food advice. Okay, that was the good news. So, not much difficulty here. The difficult thing was with the complexity of the advice. So, people, parents, had to follow the eye diet who was giving them some information, not information, some structure, yes. It was saying what to cook for the next day. So just imagine. In my country, at least, usually in the families, both parents are working. Okay, I think that this is the norm in the most of Europe. So mothers usually cook. They come back from work at home at 5 or 6 in the evening. So they have the advice from the eye diet what to cook. Let's say that they start to cook. Okay, they make the meal, and then they have to face their children. You see, children are difficult. Children are peculiar. Children sometimes are weird. When they say no, they mean it. It's very difficult to change their mind. So what the mother will do, she will try for a couple of minutes to change their mind, to make them accept the meal. 99% they will fail. After a couple of minutes, she has two choices. The first is to cook something very quickly, like an omelette or fried potatoes. All right. The other thing is to order a pizza or souvlaki in Greece. Okay, not very healthy. That's what most mothers face when they come back from work. And on top of that, think that the mothers are tired. Sometimes they are exhausted. They don't have the nerves even to say to the eye diet, today, instead of chicken with potatoes, I gave them souvlaki. Okay, sometimes even that. Even this thing, to say to the eye diet that we made a change, is difficult for them. And this is one thing. The other thing is that mothers have to think for the whole family. Usually when they cook, they don't cook for the child, they cook for the whole family. Families and children, because usually they have other children in the family, they have preferences. Many preferences for the taste, for the texture, for the feeling in the mouth, for the smell. My daughters never ate chickpeas because they didn't smell well. They didn't like the smell. They never tasted them. This is something very, very common in children. So they have to think the other children. They have to think the whole family. It's not easy. So I think that in order for an application to work properly, they have to know the preferences of the family as a whole, not only for the children. It has to be targeted in the family. Another thing, another difficulty was with the supplements, the tannin supplements. What was the problem? The biscuits with the cocoa biscuits were hard. They were hard to chew. It wasn't easy for the children to chew them. So they tried them for a few days, and then they stopped using it. They stopped eating them. Even if they were not hard, I'm sure that they would soon get bored of them. You see, children are getting bored very easily. You need to have a lot of choices in order to give supplements. Try jellies next time. Okay, jellies. Biscuits of different flavors, of different textures. That will be very important in order to accept to eat supplements. Mm-hmm. Okay. These were the problems we've met, and you see, although a few months ago, we saw that some of these problems were insuperable. We cannot cope with that, so we decided to create something like a helpline. I found a volunteer who was on the telephone 7 days a week. She was taking phones from parents who were asking for technical things, advice on the food, how can I cook this, I do not understand this recipe, and all that. Even that, it didn't overcome the problem. Even with that, we still had problems. So it's very difficult. Children are a very difficult population. We have to think of very aspects of this problem if we want to succeed with the eye diet.
Okay, thank you very much, Kostas. I think it's very important to have this view also on the real direct feedback from the people that are actually eating and trying out these products. And of course, personalized nutrition also starts with personalized taste buds. So yeah. I think you also gave us some little testimonials that...
Yes. Are you going to show them?
That would be the plan, yes.
Yeah. Okay, but just a warning. Those testimonials are not representing of our population. There are 3 parents that they are of higher education. 2 of them are doctors, and the other is a psychologist. So you see, they are very... they could very well understand what we were trying to do, and that this thing was very good for the health of their children. On top of that, I attended their children for many years, so they didn't want to make me unhappy. So they were a bit more polite than I would like. Okay.
Morning from Athens, Greece. My name is Evangelia Liakou and I am a participant in your study. I'd like to congratulate you for a very interesting, modern and forward-thinking research model. The mobile app was really user-friendly and so easy to navigate through it. This has been a prime chance to utilize a healthy and nutritional lifestyle in my family. The only feedback I'd like to share is that some recipes were complex and quite specialized for our kids' dietary habits. I wish you success and good results. Bye from Athens.
Hello. It was a great experience that we got involved in this project. Congratulations for this initiative, and I hope more initiatives like that will take place in the future. It was great for us that we adopted new eating healthy habits, and I think that our children improved the gut system. Taking part in this study, we're considering the meaning of food intake, and we're happy to get involved in similar projects in the future. Congratulations and thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to being a part of that great project. Initially I found the thought of it was quite difficult, but eventually being through the process it was quite interesting and not that difficult at the end. I have to admit that the eye diet gave me some good ideas about healthy meals, and I think I will follow those even after the end of that project. But I have to admit that there were some difficulties. Some recipes, ideas were not quite close to our lifestyle and what we used to do here in Greece. But I think with some changes, I managed to get through even some difficult recipes ones as well. I hope that more projects like that will take place in order to ameliorate more families' lifestyle and leading to a more healthy society. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think there was some real-life examples, some real-life feedback, I think, even if we have to take it with a grain of salt, of course, but I think it's good to have these voices from the public. Looking at the time, I think, Camila, do you want to go over to the third round of questions, or do you have something in mind for the questions that we have from Slido right now?
Let's try to go very quickly through to the last questions and try to incorporate some of the questions that we have from the public. Otherwise, we're going to answer all these questions after the conference. So, Darius, with the availability of several breakthrough innovations, AI, this metaverse, and so on, their potential applications in personalized nutrition is yet not fully realized. Can you think or suggest possible future uses or developments of these technologies in personalized nutrition?
Yes, so I think the background right now for any consumer is that the consumers typically now live in a world where they're extremely under pressure. They're under time pressure. They're under resource pressure, facing high inflations, and then they also face environmental threats that also face threats to their personal health. So I think that artificial intelligence is going to be part of the solution. And we are just entering that age of artificial intelligence. And one major contribution in the future will be, right now, the entire data that is used for this personalized nutrition is just based on small samples compared to when we will see larger adoption and actually can harvest the data from many, many more users and then use artificial intelligence to actually uncover the secrets behind the microbiome that will then further help to improve personal health.
And then make it more precise, to make the output, indeed. So I'm going to jump to Kai, and building on Darius' question at the beginning of his presentation, what are the primary steps that should be taken, and by whom, to ensure that such innovations are trustworthy by default, especially with regards with the citizens' data rights?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it starts with that awareness and with that goal in mind. And I literally mean it starts with that goal in mind. So I do not think in this day and age the question should be, okay, we have a bit of data, what do we do with it? But more like, what's the use case? And also the examples that you've given, Kostas, show that. It's all of these examples and also the quotes we heard were, some of my needs were not met. And the needs are multifaceted. It's not just the nutrition that matters in food, but it matters the life situation. It matters the habits and so forth. So making sense of these actual needs and then tying data-based approaches to them, for me, is a given. And then doing this always having in mind considerations around privacy, cybersecurity, data fairness, putting the human first and not the data, these kinds of values, I would even say. So, trust can be based on principled behavior. So we need to be very clear of these principles at the very outset of designing tools, solutions, digital approaches. I think we're getting there. It's not just a matter of regulation, meaning GDPR. It is also a matter of regulation, but in my view, being trustworthy goes beyond compliance. So it's not enough to be compliant and say, oh, we did GDPR, we did that. But it's a bit more than that. And I believe that this will even make apps that are built on this more competitive, because where they're better received on the receiving end by the users. At least that's still my belief, and that's our belief in the project, and we're trying to demonstrate that. And it's easy to say that, of course, we still have it ahead of us, but that's our belief, that's our promise in the project. And let's see at the end of 2025 if we achieve that, these results, and then maybe even, well, exploit them beyond the project. That's, of course, the hope.
I would like to add also that it's on how we communicate this information to the users and the consumers, because we can have everything stated, but we really have to understand what are their needs and how do they think to communicate it properly, so they get the they trust they get the trust in the product you're selling.
Absolutely, yeah. Just one sentence to this. Absolutely, I think the communication and the transparency piece here are key, and I think that's a core difference to how we looked at privacy and security and data in the past, where yes, it was built in somehow, but now I think we need to make it more visible. So I'm talking about explicit trust rather than implicit trust, right? So we need to make it explicit. These are the principles that, for example, the iDiet app are based on. If you want, read a little bit more about it here. 90% of the people won't do that, but the very fact that they could, that's the trust piece.
Well, thank you, Kai. I'm going to jump to Ali now, and I would like to ask you, according to your expert opinion, what are the top 3 urgent actions that legislators at the European Union and at the national level should take regarding personalized nutrition?
I think it needs to be clarified from a policy perspective and maybe from a societal perspective in general. What do we expect from personalized nutrition, and what does fall under it, and what promises shouldn't we make also in our research and in the projects that we do? That's a very important aspect. These gray areas, they need to be further unraveled, I would say. And I think one of the comments that was on the screen is also, for example, that there is a certain, this anonymous person is afraid, I think, for certain AI, fake elements, fake information. And I think if I look at my students who can write very interesting papers using ChatGPT, and very convincing papers with very convincing, BS. I have to be very honest about that, but that's also ChatGPT, supporting them. And if you're not extremely knowledgeable on the topic, you might be very easily convinced, because they can even help you, AI even helps you to get a reference. So I think we need to make sure that the evidence base should be the core of everything that is done. And I think this is one of the projects showing how important that evidence base is and building that evidence base further. And I think that's a second point that policy advisors should push forward to increase that evidence base. And I think one of the things we see in the personalized nutrition sphere is that lots and lots of different initiatives are taken. And that's also one of the comments, I think, of some of the online viewers is, what about the abundance of different types of apps and services available? And I think trying to combine these different elements, doing that in projects like yours, trying to make it feasible to use different sources of information that are collected already through, for example, European projects, and building upon that further should be stimulated as well. Trying to make it data interoperable, trying to make it as fair as possible, that it's used interchangeably, that would also be something that policy should be recommending. So it's not just regulations that need to be unraveled, but there's more towards, I think, the science that should be pushed forward.
Thank you very much, Ali. And now to finalize this third round and the conference, I would like to ask Kostas. There was a comment before about the test of the microbiota and all these fecal sample tests. They're not common in the regular checkups that we do at the doctor every year. So I don't want to influence your answer here, but how do you envision personalized nutrition being integrated into medical care? And what are some of the barriers to implementing this type of approach?
Barriers. Yeah. Yes. First of all, we need money. Demosthenes has said that. We need money. We cannot do anything without that. Why we need money? Because, first of all, we have to build our knowledge on the microbiome. We have to learn what exactly this microbiome is doing and how it interferes with our body. So that needs lots of basic research. We have to know all that, and then we have to try to implement it in medicine. The barriers. After that, we have to wait to be adapted by the professionals. I think the professionals, doctors, are the key. If they adapt it, then it would be easy. You see, I've said that before. The private sector in medicine usually is looking for those things. I mean, if we know that there are some very good data and some good guidelines about the microbiome, sooner or later there were very much laboratories that will analyze the microbiome, and then this will be the next step. The next step will be for the public sector to adopt it. One step and then the second step, and that's it. But till then, we have a lot of things to do. And
thank you. I guess it's like try to work more in the prevention of diseases than the treatment of diseases at the end.
Yes. That's another thing. I think there's a key point here. In order for this kind of applications to work, they have to be very simple. They have to be simple and flexible. We don't have to expect to go and doing like this question like this. They have to go into the house and ask something like that, like Alexa. Alexa, turn on the light, please. I died. What will I have to cook today? Spinach with rice. Okay. No, I don't have that, and supermarkets are closed now. Any other possibilities? Yes, you can
so
have.
lucky.
Yes. Something like that. And the other thing is that if we want to start an intervention like this and to expect good results, especially in the field of prevention of the diseases, we have to start it early. That's for two reasons. The first one is that we know that the microbiome changes very quickly in the first few years, and these changes seem to be very crucial. They seem to modulate the immunological system. So the first 2 years. Also, the first 2 years are very crucial for another thing. We know that children adapt to different tastes. I mean that they choose their preferences with what they are going to eat in the first 2 years. So if we give them a lot of choices, a lot of healthy choices, then they most likely will keep those choices and in their later life. So it will be more easily to implement an intervention like this later, because they will know those foods and they will not object to eating them.
Thank you so much, Kostas. I don't know about the time.
Yeah, I mean, time is
run out.
We're always running out of time.
Yeah.
With these encouraging and interesting discussions, I think there is never enough time. I would maybe like to close this. I'm sorry, I just can't undo it, but looking back at the introductory presentation from Darius, maybe in one sentence, could you answer the question, is the world ready for personalized nutrition? Is the world ready for iDiet? In one sentence.
In one word, yes.
Oh, okay.
I
You can also do one word, of course.
I think there's an asterisk to it. Write everything I said earlier about the trust and all these kind of things.
Kostas.
Yes, it's ready for the first step.
Okay. Ali?
I'm going to agree with the yes and the very annoying buts. We have to unravel some aspects, both, well, from a legislative perspective, but especially from a scientific perspective.
And finally, Darius?
It better be, because we're facing very much challenges to our personal health, and general dietary guidelines don't cut it in this day and age, where we have so many allergies and so on, where personalized nutrition can prevent diseases, and the world is ready. And we just ran a study with real advertisements online for a personalized nutrition service app, and with 17,000 impressions, we got like an interest rate of 4.9%, which is above average for ads online. So we do see the interest is there, and this is evidence for the world is ready, and it's going to be exciting to see what the users will make out of it.
Fantastic. That was a very long sentence, but I take Okay. I think we would like to close this interesting panel discussion now. Thanks so much to all the panelists on stage here. Jose, I'm sorry that we took a little bit of your time, but I guess you will say a few words and
I wanted to thank the online audience for the very good questions, and
Yes.
we didn't have time to address them, but there were brilliant questions there.
We will come back to the online audience, and I also think they deserve a special round of applause, maybe even for the very interesting contribution and input to that. So thanks everyone, thanks for this panel discussion, and
just before we close the conference, I would like to ask you, like, if you're wondering, or have you asked yourself about this one? Like, we didn't create it for ourselves. These little ones were developed, and they were given to the children that were part of the interventions, so they could feel motivated and more engaged to follow the advice from the app. So that's why they were created, not just for fun. Yeah, I can serve as a pillow, or yeah. So yeah, I think we're ready to finish. Thank you very much. As Stefan said, I don't know if you would like to say a final word. No? Okay.
This is up to you.
Okay.
You have to.
Yeah,
as
it's supposed to be
coordinator
like
of the
that.
project, I don't think there's any way around it.
You are the organizers of the meeting, so at the end, you are the responsible of the bad things. I know always that even if you are German or not, doesn't matter if you want to be strict with the time, we are always run out of time. So I didn't prepare anything for my last speech here. So it's not a speech, it's just a very long sentence, okay? I would like to acknowledge to all of you for being here, okay? And to still be seated there with your bottom flat plane, put it there with such much a long time. I enjoyed it a lot. Today, I learned a lot. I'm also very happy when we were preparing, drafting the project, okay, in 2017. Long time ago. You know, I took many information, you know, from previous funded projects, on the, you know, Food for Me, okay? I said, oh, we are going to to extend what they do what they did in that project. And now I'm checking that other projects. I'm going to extend what we are going to do. And so I think that this is something that really matters, and doing things, and we are contributing to the spread, not research, to spread the knowledge and the improvement of human beings, you know. So at the end, all our effort, and you still need to be more effort, okay, till the project closed. Don't worry about that. It's something nice. So finally, I must confess also, I'm also a sinner. Not the same kind of sinner, but I know that I press all my partners to work a lot. But I must confess, I love pressing people, you know, to work and to do things. This is my reality. But I almost confess that I learned a lot from you, from all of you, okay? I suffer your mails, calls, all the things, you know. But you know that I must say here in the public manner that at the end, you know, that just a little bit part of my heart will be always with you, okay? You know that I'm here just to say thank you so much for being here, and just enjoy in a couple of hours with some beers or whatever outside, okay? So thank you.
Thank you for our external speakers for being here today. We appreciate you being here, also for the project partners. And let's go for the networking now. Thank you for the online audience also to be with us. And we're going to have the recordings of the sessions and also the questions answered in, very soon. So, well, thank you so much. Bye.